Yes, love is in the air. Summer's here, and which brings us to our topic today with CJAD legal contributor Chris Dimakos. So, Chris, how are you?
You know what? I hear that song, but I'm so jaded from what I do every day. You know?
I'm sorry.
I hear that
yeah.
stuff, and I want to believe. I want to believe.
Yeah. Well, it's important to want to believe, but you know what? Sometimes reality comes and hits you right between the eyes. So let's deal with that. So first of all, we're dealing with a situation here. This actually kind of made it to court, right? You mentioned about a year ago or so. So to clarify, and I know we talked about this once before, in Quebec, there is no such thing as common law, right? To clarify.
Right. No common law. So if you live with somebody for whatever number of years you live with them, the law does not consider you to be a married couple, which means, division of assets and what you've acquired and all that stuff. But what we do have in Quebec that kind of is like a residual claim is something called unjust enrichment. So if you are with somebody for 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is, and because of the relationship, one of the parties is unjustly enriched, for example, one person might have worked and paid for the other person to go to school, paid for all the utilities, paid for all the groceries. And then after 10 years of schooling, the one person says, I'm leaving. And then, they're left with nothing. So there's a chance that you can claim for unjust enrichment. And there's a real case now, and I believe it's going to be going to the Supreme Court, but where a couple decided to sign a cohabitation agreement. This is where when you move in together and you have a relationship together, you decide, okay, in the event we break up, how are we going to divide stuff? Who gets what, how much, all the finances, everything is put down on paper.
So kind of like a prenup in a sense.
It's kind of like a prenup for people that are living together in that so-called common law. And that, for the most part, dealt with all of this stuff. Once you sign one of those, then there's no question afterwards. Right. Well, one couple had a situation where they signed one of these agreements. Everything was with a lawyer, notarized, the whole 9 yards. Well, at the end of the relationship, of the 15 or 18-year relationship, one of the parties became extremely wealthy, very successful, and they decided to leave and say, I found somebody else. I want to end this relationship. And they said, we already have the cohabitation agreement. Let's just do what we said we were going to do. And the other party said, hey, 1 second here. I want more. You've accumulated a lot more in this relationship, and I think I deserve more. So they went to court and they claimed unjust enrichment, even though they had one of these agreements. And the court had to answer the question, can you file an unjust enrichment claim even after signing a cohabitation agreement? It went to appeal, and the appeal said, look, when you have one of these things, it usually takes care of all that stuff unless there's something in there that allows you to claim for something in the future. And in this case, there wasn't. So, the point that people should be taking from this is when you get involved in a relationship and you move in with somebody and they're not married and you've been there for years and you want to put something down on paper, you either want to make sure that you have room there to have a possible claim if things become much more than you anticipated, or you want to protect yourself if you're concerned about that and have a claim that doesn't allow you to file something in the future like an unjust enrichment claim. So, basically it's, you might think you have an ironclad agreement, but you have to make sure that there's certain provisions in there that don't allow for these claims in the future.
So I'm trying to think of these people. First of all, this couple we're talking about, do we know how long they'd been together or living together?
I think it was 18 years.
Okay. And they did what they were supposed to do as you described it, right? They kind of noted everything, what they were going to have, split, detailed, signed the whole, and they got a lawyer to do it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, lawyer,
the whole thing.
Lawyer, no lawyer, it ends up being challenged anyway. So what's the point of signing a contract to begin with?
Well, in this case, the contract stood, and there was no, I think the claim was for over $2 or $3 million. And at first trial, they won it, and then it got reversed in appeal because they said, 1 second here, the agreement says this is a final transaction. That's the whole point of having this agreement. Now, the court didn't say that it's not impossible to do it later on, but you have to look to the agreement to see if there's a window there that would allow you to make such a claim. So what's really important here is when you sit down with somebody to put this thing together, you got to make sure that you ask all the questions. Hey, what happens in 10 years if I'm worth X amount of dollars? Can my significant other decide to make a claim for half of that? Does this agreement prevent that from happening? Mm-hmm. You can never be certain, but now we have case law that gives some clarity on that.
Okay, the other thing, again, I'm just kind of bear with me here, Chris. So if you had decided to go ahead and do this, because clearly when you're living this way in Quebec, it's a good thing to do, right? You don't want surprises in the event things don't work out. If you had put something in that contract, as you're describing this, that says, hey, by the way, just in case one of us becomes really, really rich over the course of our relationship and we decide to split, you'll be entitled to whatever percentage of that. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, yeah, or it could be something along the lines of, we understand that, the situation has changed financially, and we are right now, saying that we are not allowed to claim for unjust enrichment. That's a claim that we are renouncing to. We're going to waive our right to claim an unjust enrichment, in 15 years, if parties, there's a big disparity between the wealth. And you're basically going to waive that right. If you are someone that's concerned about that, you ask the other party to waive that right, to say, you won't be able to make that claim in the future.
Who thinks of doing that, though? I mean,
it's so difficult because the biggest obstacle people have is when you first move in together, things are going really well.
Yeah.
So it's so hard to bring it up at that time. But it's usually what I advise people to do is don't take the onus on yourself. Blame it on the lawyers. Say, let's go see what they have to say, and let the lawyers handle it, and make sure that your lawyer understands what you want and where you want to protect yourself in the future. But it's so difficult, like you said, Aaron, because the timing is just off. You're there, you're enjoying yourself, you're walking through IKEA talking about feng shui, and then you're not realizing that in 10 years from now you might have a claim for $2 million that you're going to have to part with because they're not happy about the breakdown of the relationship.
What were you talking about? Who are you walking with talking about feng shui? What are you doing out there? What kind of a conversation is that? Okay.
I'm saying that
I understand.
Every time my wife drags me to one of these furniture stores, I see these couples and they're hugging, holding hands, and they're talking, and I'm saying, oh man, I hope this works out because I've seen the other side of this.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I have another question to ask. In this particular case, as you describe it, because you said off the top, a lawyer was involved in drafting this document. Is that lawyer liable for not having, put this in here or assumed that, potentiality here?
No. The clauses that were in there were enough for the one party to protect the wealth that they've earned. That being said, what the court did, and this is going to go to the Supreme Court, but the court did say, look, we're not saying it's impossible to file a claim, but if you want real transparency, waive those rights at the start. So, for example, it wasn't mentioned here in these agreements, but if you really want to have something that closes the door on that type of claim, address it right there and then and say, we're waiving all claims for that in the future. So we're never going to have that right later on. You signed an agreement. Both parties were, consulted with lawyers. Everything is set in stone.
It reminds me, maybe, I'm not sure, not that long ago, we had a couple in Ontario, somewhere in Toronto, I think, who one of the guys, I think the husband may have won like a $6 million lotto jackpot. His wife and he had been separated or divorced, and now she's trying to say part of that money is hers. I mean, you never know. You win a lottery and you're in this situation. Unless can you specifically say, I mean, it's a weird thing to think of putting in an agreement, isn't it? If I ever win the lottery,
Right. And that usually is the case here in Quebec, because in other provinces, once you've been together for a certain amount of time, there are laws that kick in and protect and divide some of that wealth. But because in Quebec we have, we want to protect that independence and that free consent, and saying, hey, if I don't want to share my stuff, I don't have to share my stuff. And if we move in, well then we'll move in, and it doesn't mean that I have to share my stuff if I stay with you for a certain amount of time. That's very unique to Quebec. So this is where these cohabitation agreements take on a whole new meaning in Quebec, because in other provinces, you have the laws that are there that kick in once you reach a certain time.
By the way, are they trying to change this law in Quebec or modify this? Because, I mean, these cases will keep coming up.
Right. We had that Lola case that was so famous.
Right.
We do have laws that came up. We have new laws regarding parents that are not married right now in terms of what their assets are. and it's called a parental union. But we're moving towards that. There more and more Quebec wants to kind of not go away with our independence, but they do want to have more legislation that takes care of a party that might have been prejudiced by a breakup of a relationship. But yeah, we're moving towards that, but we're not there yet. That's for sure.
All right. Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd.
And more. All your decade-defining favorites all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.